Hey everyone, it's the Monty Man, and you are about to take part in the experience, the strength, and the hope of this episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show.
Three, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! Come here for a minute. I want to talk to you. Mama says you're brain dead.
Bang your head against the wall.
Can't find peace of mind. Brain needs an overhaul.
Hi, Dave.
Bonehead, brain dead.
Hi, Denver.
You can't think straight when your heart is in pain. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
The views expressed on this broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show are those of the co-host and guest and do not necessarily reflect those of our affiliates. The topics and opinions on today's show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice. Take 12 Radio is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
That's
and
right.
And now, here's your host,
The man.
The man.
The myth.
The myth.
The legend.
Maybe.
the Monty Man.
I'm telling you the truth.
Telling you the truth, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. Good guys, bad boys,
We're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game.
turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
Well, welcome to another fine episode of the world's original recovery talk and recovery music radio station, KHLT Recovery Broadcasting, and the Take 12 Recovery Radio Shows. Denver Wolf is here.
Good morning.
Dave Fleming is here. He's sleeping. Wake up, Dave. Relax. Everything's going to be okay. Isn't it?
For sure. Wow.
Okay. All right.
We're all praying.
Well, hey, listen, it is, once again, it is National Recovery Month, September. And speaking of National Recovery Month, because that's what I'm speaking of at the moment, if you would like to participate, and of course everything is, live streaming now because everybody has got the fear of COVID going on.
That's where we're at.
Right. But listen, Recovery Happens San Diego, which is a huge event every year. Of course, this year it's live streaming. It is going on this Saturday at 10 a.m. and again at 11:30 a.m. And this is all live streaming. If you'd like to register, it is free. Go to take12radio.com and click on the banner that says Recovery Happens San Diego. Now, you can register two ways. You can click on the dark blue strip that will register you through Facebook. If you're not a Facebooker, Facebooker? Booker. Then you can just click on the Zoom button, and that'll register you through Zoom. And you can attend Recovery Happens 2020 San Diego. Some of the speakers, Dave Brandon, Bromo is his nickname. Brian Duncan, who does our show Radio Rehab, The Road to Redemption, will be speaking. I think it's Gene McAllister, Scott Silverman, TJ Woodward, and yours truly, the Monty Man. We are all speaking at the Recovery Happens San Diego 2020. Music and performance by Lisa Sanders and Brown Sugar. And Camilla Bell will be doing the national anthem. So check them out. Go to take12radio.com and click on the blue register for free link. And then at 10 o'clock and 11:30 on Saturday, September 12th, be a part of Recovery Happens San Diego. There you go.
Awesome.
In celebration of National Recovery Month. Oh, wow. All right. This week's topic is you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Kind of self-explanatory, really. If you don't acknowledge an issue, does that mean it doesn't exist? I remember when I was a teenager and I knew I was going to get in hot water, and I tell myself, when I get the whooping, I'm just going to pretend like it's not happening, and then it won't hurt.
How'd that work out for
Not
you?
well.
It still came.
It did still come.
Stick a book in your
Okay,
pants.
everybody, stop for a minute because I got a little ditty to introduce this part
Uh-oh.
of the show. Yeah. Monty the whiner, whines about everything he can think of. Monty the whiner,
Oh, boy.
Monty the whiner, don't you know you're powerless over everything? That's right, everybody. It's that
That's
time again where Monty whines about something he has absolutely no control of.
Let me guess.
You going to guess?
It's not going to be about a burger or something.
No,
is it?
it's not.
All right.
No.
Good.
So just so everybody knows, it is official. I am now officially a racist.
Oh, yeah. I read that.
Yeah,
Is that part of the acknowledgement?
I
Can't
guess.
fix what you don't acknowledge.
I
Yeah.
guess so.
Now official.
So it was really interesting because,
Here we go.
I wanted to stay out of this stuff, but I guess you just can't, especially when you're accused of something and you're not even a part of it. So a person that I know who will remain unnamed, because I don't choose to go down the road that this person chooses to go down. There was a statue, I think it was somewhere down by Louisiana or Houston or, where the storm is, right? That got ripped apart and blown over from the hurricane. And this person made a statement on Facebook. See, even God is tearing down these racist statues or whatever, And I said something to the effect of, and I believe this. I mean, if there is something inappropriate that needs to be changed, there are methods to go about that in nonviolent ways. I mean, there are things that you can do. There's petitions you can sign. There's things you can do to enact something to be removed or whatever. And it was just a suggestion that maybe if there's something wrong with some of these things, instead of destroying public property and creating violence, maybe there are other ways to go about it. And that made me a racist. And now this person is spreading rumors on the internet that I'm a racist and I'm a bigot. And, and I thought, wow, okay. And a friend of mine said, hey, Monty, no big deal. Jump in. The water's fine.
This is just so ridiculous.
Are you kidding me? So then I was told, because I'm a Christian man, because I'm white, and because I believe in the traditional institution of family, that I'm a racist. And somebody says, well, what is your opinion of the traditional institution of family? And I'm like, I'm not even going to sit down and argue that with you.
I'm not going to engage on that.
if you're that quick to start throwing labels at people that you have never even met.
Yeah.
Do they even know what the definition of
They don't.
racism is?
No. Well, evidently, if you say you're not a racist, you're a racist. So, okay.
It's pretty cluttered right now. It really is.
It's just nonsense.
Come on.
It is.
So sometimes on social media you'll see a thing that says 2 words that you would use to express today or something like that. Well, I mean, somebody said pay attention, or 2 words you would wish you used growing up, things like that. Mine is just simply grow up. Grow up. I mean, gee willikers. Yeah. So there's my whine. I guess. I don't know if you're going to label me something. I suppose, why not that?
Everything's so tender
Let's
right
combat
now.
violence with violence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tinderbox.
And this has nothing to do with whether. Oh, somebody said, "Well, I could tell who you're voting for." How do you know that? How do you know that? You live in my head? Okay. So, what can I say? What can I say? So there you go. That's my weekly whine. I mean, and this is coming from people that use that verse in Matthew that says, "Judge not, lest you be judged." What the heck are you doing?
Well, like I've always said, if some people just need to stop calling themselves Christians.
Yeah, because by the way, this statement that was made to me is coming from someone who claims to be a born again believer. I'm like, unbelievable. This is, I think it was DC Talk in their book Jesus Freak made a statement like, this is the kind of behavior that an unbelieving world finds simply unbelievable.
Yeah. Huh?
I mean, I get it. I get it why people are they're going, if that's how you're representing Christianity, I want to do with it. I mean, I totally understand.
What happened to love and tolerance and
within
grace.
recovery, within the recovery community, love and tolerance is our code? Really? Did you forget that one, dude and dudette? Okay. Well, it's like the hate mail we got when we tried to put a little humorous spin on Rule 62 and don't take life so seriously about all this political stuff. You know what I mean? You got to keep your sense of humor. So, yeah, it's too bad. But you know what? We're going to keep laughing and we're going to keep moving forward and we're going to keep preaching the message that the lie is dead, we do recover. Speaking of which, we're going to talk about this whole thing of moving from recovery into recovered, kind of bounce it off each other here as we talk about you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. So when we come back, we're going to look into that. So don't go away. We'll be back here in just a minute. Rule 62.
Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
Hey everybody, did you know that September is National Recovery Month? That's right. And if you'd like to download any of our shows or our archives, simply visit us at Take 12, that's the number 12, Recovery Radio, wherever you subscribe to your podcast.
You and I know all too well how talented folks in recovery are. KHLT Broadcasting, the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show, and the Recovery Broadcasting Network are handing you the opportunity to share some of that talent. If you've ever written your own songs and have always wanted to share them publicly, here's the chance to share your talent with thousands of people all over the world through internet radio. For the next several months, the Monty Man will be reviewing songs written and performed by people in recovery. Whether you're an accomplished musician or a novice, he wants to hear from you. All forms of music will be considered. Adhering to federal copyright laws and possible contractual agreements, some restrictions may apply.
To submit your original recovery songs for airplay, send CDs to KHLT, P.O. Box 93, Albany, Oregon 97321. Or email your music in MP3 format to take12radio@comcast.net.
All right, welcome back to the show. The topic this week.
Hey, Denver, what do you think?
About a song?
Yeah.
It was crossing my mind.
I saw the wheels turning.
It did.
What are you guys talking about?
About us singing a song.
Yeah, we'll put a song together and submit it.
I already got a couple.
You need to do that. You play the guitar.
Do I?
Yes, you do.
The guitar?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I got the whole month to think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the idea. Yeah, definitely.
It's been a long time since I tuned it up, but maybe.
So the topic this week: you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. And one of the things that I discovered in my 30-day wonder journey when I was relapsing every 30 days there for a long time years ago was that truly I wasn't convinced I was powerless over substances. Because if I had been convinced of that, right, I wouldn't have thought I had power over them and that I could control them. Because every time I relapse, I thought, well, this time it'll be different. This time I'll drink like a gentleman. This time I won't spend so much money. This time I'll only take $40 out of the ATM. This time I'll stay home. You know, all these this times, right? I'm going to control this thing, which speaks to the fact that I believed I had some kind of power over this thing. And so I couldn't fix what I didn't acknowledge. I didn't acknowledge I was powerless. Now, we've talked about, and Dave, you and I have talked about this too before, about recovering, and that we're not defined by our illnesses, but at the same time, we can't fix something we don't acknowledge. So we're going to talk about that. And I wanted to address this word convinced that is in between the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the Alcoholics Anonymous conference approved book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. We need to be absolutely convinced of something before we have a 100% buy-in to it, right? No matter what it is.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you're out there and you are struggling and you are wondering why you continue to relapse or fall into old behaviors, and by the way, if you're doing it now, as Rob Kelly says, it's not old behavior. It's current behavior. And you just are scratching your head and you're like, man, I'm in church every Sunday. I'm in synagogue during the Sabbath. I'm in meetings every time the meeting doors are open. I have a sponsor. I'm reading the steps on the wall. I'm drinking tons of bad coffee. I can't figure out why I can't stay clean, why I can't stay sober. You may not be convinced of your malady. You may still think you have power over it, maybe. So this word convinced, it is all over the place in the recovery literature. In the 12 and 12, page 23, after a few such experiences, often years before the onset of extreme difficulties, he would return to us convinced. On the Big Book, page 40, the story he told is most instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking. Page 71, we hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. The family afterwards in the Big Book, page 135, the others must be convinced of his new status beyond the shadow of a doubt. Big Book forward to the second edition, though he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford groups, he was convinced of the need for a moral inventory. Two Wives, page 107, and just as we were being convinced of their heartlessness, they would surprise us with fresh resolves and new attentions. That's just some of them. I'm going to read some more here in a little bit. But the word convinced is all over the place. Being convinced, we were now at step 3, for instance. We have to have a total buy-in on this thing. Now, I want to open this up for discussion. How long, I'm going to ask Denver you first, how long was it before you were convinced that you were powerless over alcohol? How long did it take?
Let's see, I'm 60 now.
Right?
Well, you're working on a few months, you know. It's been a while since I had a drink, but yeah, convinced, huh?
Right?
Yeah, I would talk myself into, I'm convinced I'm not going to drink tomorrow. Guess what I did? I would pick up a bottle the next day. So, I don't know exactly when this is happening.
Yeah.
Because it is happening every day when I wake up. I convince myself that you really can't take a drink, because if you start this little roller coaster ride,
right,
you're off again. So I won't say it's set firmly in my head, but every day I remind myself that if I start this, it's gonna get worse. You know, I'm back on the roller coaster.
So you know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know that from?
Well, I've known that for a long, long time.
Right.
But still, that urge was there. You know, it's a daily thing for me. I really
different.
I need to.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm unique.
Yeah. Yeah. I can get it this time. And
we call that terminally uniqueness.
Yeah. Terminally unique.
Yeah. Terminal
right.
uniqueness.
So yeah. convinced.
So
Powerful word right there.
it is.
Yes.
So is this primarily due to past experiences that you're convinced that?
Yeah, trial and error has really proved itself time and time again. So after enough abuse of myself, you know, I realize I'm maybe convinced that I can't do it. I can't.
Right.
I'd love to. You know, I'd like to find the magic solution to where I would be what they call normal drinker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a normal drinker.
Right.
I will take a bottle and I will abuse it until the end.
So, which is interesting because it's really experiential, right? I mean, you have to experience this. But you can sit around in a recovery club or a 12-step meeting all day long and listen to everybody's stories. And we know there's power in other people's stories. We know that. I mean, when I sponsor somebody, I always have them, there's a place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous where it refers to the stories in the back, and I have them stop and I have them read the stories in the back and see if they can identify with any of that stuff. But by the same token, there's something to be said about experiencing the powerlessness and not just hearing about it or reading about it. Would you agree with that?
I don't
Trial
know.
and error.
I don't
Trial
know
and error.
anybody that hasn't had to experience it themselves.
Before they're convinced.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you,
Yeah.
I would venture, I would go on a limb here and say, if you just go to a meeting and hear people stories and then go, okay, I'm convinced, I'll stop.
Yeah.
You're
It's not real.
Maybe you're not an alcoholic.
It's not real.
Maybe
good
you just had a few too many drinks a couple of times and acted
got a
a
little
fool,
trouble.
and
Yeah.
somebody said maybe you need to go look at this.
So maybe you abused alcohol, but you
Yeah.
may not be allergic to alcohol, right? Anybody can abuse it.
Right.
Sure. How long did it take before you were convinced you were powerless over mind-altering goodies?
Oh, goodies.
I can remember the exact experience that I had.
Yeah.
That I finally was convinced. Now, did
the
I stop
awakening?
there? No, but it was my normal routine was, you know, I think I've shared this story before, is, you know, I would, after work, you know, I'd stop at the local convenience store, buy a 64 ounce or 30, whatever the big gulp cup is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fill it with whatever.
Right.
And then I'd go next door to the liquor store.
A little ice.
And then I'd, you know, a little ice, yeah. And then I, you know, I'd get the, I think it was a 750 milliliter fridge pack on the outside, the vodka.
Yeah.
And I'd basically pour out whatever, and it would perfectly fill the cup back up, stick a straw in it, and I'd head on down the road on the way home. And I remember this one day, you know, I tried not to drink at work. It got to be a point where at lunchtime or break time, I'd go out to my truck and take a pull. But it was, I always had this feeling like, you know, this internal, it wasn't like, you know, shaking, like, you know, you see people like really shaking bad. It was more of an internal thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
And having high blood pressure, I used to just kind of, you know, equate it to that, what was going on in my, you know, blood pressure was off, or I just wasn't taking care of myself back then. I wasn't taking my medication or anything like that. But so this one particular day, I'm on my way home, and I get down the road. You know, I have a few pulls off the drink, and about 10 minutes down the road, all of a sudden my head cleared up. You know, the vision was clear. You know, the internal shaking was gone, and you know, the stuff that I heard the first time I was in treatment, you know, you can't drink and you can't not drink. And for me, that was like the first aha that I really,
that made sense to you,
believed that I have a problem, even though there's lots of evidence prior to that. My wife could document quite a few instances. But it wasn't until that, because I had been, doing this prayer that I do, even long before I got sober. It was like, if there's a God and you want to work in my life, give me a sign. And that was kind of my mantra. And I made a deal with, whatever power was out there, that if I had an opportunity to get back into treatment, I was going to make a go of it. Of course, I didn't turn into the treatment center on the way home.
Right.
It took a few more months, and, driving on the wrong side of the road in a blackout with my daughter in the car, before I, got the opportunity to get back in. But that was probably the first time that I actually believed it.
Yeah.
Because before it was always, I'm not ever going to, this whole powerless thing. I don't buy into that. I have the power to pick up the drink or not pick up the drink.
Now.
Well, that's before I believe that too. It's like I choose to pick it up. But I'm not going to, because in my life story, there's times where I've been powerless over things that have happened in my life, and vowed that I was never going to let that anybody or anything control me or have power over me. And so that was my biggest stumbling block, is the first step is admitting you're powerless. Because when I first thought of powerless, I thought you're powerless over basically everything. Like I can't control anything. I don't have power over anything, which is not true. And I know that intellectually. But it wasn't until I was, the whole disease concept.
Right.
Then I can buy into this, because I believe that, diseases can be, arrested or reversed or cured or whatever. And so then I can buy into that, what my personal knowledge is. I can say, okay, then I can buy into that.
So my take on this thing was, I had to be convinced that I was powerless and that I had lost the power and choice. Because if I wasn't powerless, why would I seek a power? Made no sense. If I'm not powerless, I have no need for a power. The truth was, though, I did need a power. But before I actually would seek that power, I had to be convinced I was powerless.
Right.
And I had, the big book calls it those strange mental blank spots, where you're going about your day and all of a sudden you find yourself in the bar stool again, pounding your fist on the table going, how did I get here? I had come to a place where I no more could choose not to drink than turn myself into a rock. I didn't have the ability to choose not to. I had lost the power and choice. And I believe, and I think this proves out, I believe it had to do with the change in DNA in my thinking.
Yeah, it has to be a psychic change.
There had to be a psychic change that happened, and because of what was going on in my brain, that had to completely change. Now today I believe I do have the power, and I believe I don't believe that true recovery teaches that you're going to be powerless over mind-altering substances for the rest of your life. I believe it teaches that you will come to a place where God will do for you what you can't do for yourself. And that was what my dilemma was. And then he did that. And then he gave me the opportunity to, through obedience to him, to tap into the power. And now I can do that because the DNA in my brain has changed. My thinking has changed. And so now it's still not my power, it's his power, but I have the ability to tap into that power. Therefore, I'm no longer powerless.
Right.
Therefore, I have recovered, right, from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Am I still allergic to booze? Oh, of course. Of course I am. But I had to be convinced. Now, Reading a few more, convinced. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. That's in How It Works, page 60 in the big book. Thus was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. That's in Bill's story, page 12. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. That's in Working with Others, page 96. In the 12 and 12, step 3, page 39. By now, though, the chances are that he has become convinced that he has more problems than alcohol.
Right.
That's true.
Well, I used to have this, you probably can relate to this, but, I used to say if everybody would just do things my way, everything would be fine.
Sure, you're like that actor that thinks he's the director.
Right. I had to actually remove myself from my family.
Right.
And because it's like they weren't doing their part. They weren't fixing themselves. So I have to get away from that situation in order to have sanity. And it took me a while, but, I learned that it's, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah, of
kind
course.
Of thing.
You go to the moon, but you're going to be there, right?
Yeah, the things may have, everybody's got issues, right?
Yeah.
But my issues made everything else 150 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go and take a break and fix myself. I had to go off on my own little walkabout or whatever and fix myself before I could do anything else. I had to figure out my own stuff and love myself before I could love anybody else.
Yeah. So
got to take care of the plant before you can take care of someone else, right?
So well, yeah, and then there's that thing that many sponsors will do. Well, you get into a relationship, huh? Well, I'll tell you what. Here's a plant. Keep it alive for a year. And if you can keep it alive, then you can buy a dog or a cat. And if you can keep them alive for 2 years, then you can start dating. Now, that's nowhere in the recovery literature. It's kind of a cutesy thing.
Yeah.
But it is kind of interesting, right? If you can't take care of the basic stuff that is in your immediate circle, how in the heck are you going to involve anybody else in your life and take care of anything else? And until I could admit my alcoholism, I wasn't going to address it.
Right. I knew when I had a problem when I basically, I'm making a big old pot of chili, the big.
Yeah.
And I wake up to the house filled with smoke.
Oh, no.
And the chili was gone except for a charcoal. And my cat was nowhere to be seen. So,
oh, Dave. That's funny.
Oh, my goodness. Step 7, page 72 of the 12 and 12. For just as long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength and intelligence, for just that long was a working faith in a higher power impossible. So when you think you can do this on your own intellect without a power greater than yourself, you'll never develop a relationship with a power greater than yourself. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. I had to concede in my innermost being that I was alcoholic, that I had a medical condition. That was there moral issues surrounded around it? Sure, there were, but primarily I had a medical condition that other people don't have. There was a spiritual solution to it. But in Denver, I had to understand the problem before I could understand the solution. And then once I understood the solution, I had to have a deeper understanding of the problem.
Right.
In order to maintain a healthy state of recovered.
And I think that's where a lot of people stumble, is not seeking that deeper understanding of the problem.
Right.
If I just go to meetings and I stop drinking and I get a job, then everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Which inevitably is not.
Is a very incomplete recipe for success. Yeah. And we see people do this all the time, though, don't we?
I see it all the time. see people stay in relationships that they know are unhealthy, but they stay in it because they think that they don't have any other choice or other option, and they don't want to be alone.
Yeah, and they'll turn some of their will. I like how Dr. Rob Kelly refers to the will. These are your choices.
Right.
They'll turn some of their choices over to the care of God, and some of their life over to the care of God. But God, you can't have this piece. You can have all these other pieces, but you can't have her.
Well, that's where sometimes people in recovery get stuck, because it's like, yes, I'm going to turn it over. Like, I'm going to turn that person over.
Right.
And I'm going to stay in that relationship, and God will fix them.
Yeah.
Right?
So is that really turning them over? Not really.
Well, it depends on, what your boundaries are and other things.
Well,
and I mean, there's a whole lot that's a little more.
You may be married, you may be committed to your marriage, and you're
Right.
staying in it, and so forth. But you and I, Deborah, you've seen this too, and the people we've worked, all three of us have worked with over the years. People staying, they got a shack up honey on the side, and they're trying to fix them, right? And they're taking them down, they're taking their kids down, but by God, they're gonna change that person. It's what I call missionary dating. As long as I keep dating this person, they'll see God in me, and I'll change them.
Why would they not change if I'm this great person and doing all these things for them? And
yeah, I'm doing everything right?
Yeah, it's not you, it's them. A lot of the times.
Yeah, and so
you have to fix yourself. They have to fix themselves.
So
then you have to come together. And
not being able to fix what I don't acknowledge is because I won't acknowledge what's wrong.
Right.
At some point, I mean, what Al-anon has, I'll probably get the order wrong, but you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, you can't control it, right? Oh, yes, I can. I caused it, it's all my fault, so I need to fix it. And by God, if I can't be in control of it, then I lose myself. And there we find emotional dependency happening. And then we're back to drinking and using again.
And sometimes, most of the time, in order to figure out what the problems are, you have to actually do the work. You have to get a sponsor.
Imagine that.
Do the step work and discover what some of that stuff is. Because I know along the way, I've, over the years, things have come up that I totally forgot about or didn't know, and sometimes had people remind me of things that I did in the past that totally are out of my brain.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to do that work.
Right.
And for me, that was part of the problem, is I wasn't willing to do the work that was suggested. I was doing my work.
Yeah. So when people say I'm working my program, I believe them.
Right.
I believe them. Denver, what do you think about all this?
It's a plate full. I don't think any of us want to be weak, and I don't even care to use that word a lot, but powerless, yeah, that's where I ended up in life when I finally came to grips that I'm powerless over this alcoholism.
Yeah.
I would resolve myself not to drink that day, not that hour, and sure enough, like we've said, you pull into a liquor store or wherever, and there you are again, doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
It's crazy insanity how it works. But when I come to the conclusion that I really don't have much control over this, and came to a higher power,
a dependency on that on the power,
right, over the alcohol,
right,
things got better. They do,
and I think.
It's still a struggle always in life, I mean, it's not difficult anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still it's in the back of my head. It's always looming. You better watch it. You better watch it now.
Yeah. It still clamors for your attention, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to be aware that it's there, and stay in tune with that. And yeah, you got to be on your game.
Well, that's why we stay plugged into recovery.
Right.
So that we get those reminders right? And
Like-minded fellowship, things like that. Just if you're in contact with
healthy people,
the positive,
right,
you're going to stay positive.
Especially now. I mean, we are inundated with the negative
right now.
Right? Probably the worst thing that a person that is either recovered or in the process of recovering from substance use disorder, for instance, there's all sorts of addictions, but just pick on that one. Probably the worst thing you can do right now is sit yourself in front of the boob tube. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I really, because we can argue all day long which network is lying, which is telling the truth, which is stretching the truth, which isn't, all that stuff. We can talk about, all these things. We kind of tongue-in-cheek the fact that I'm now officially a racist in the weekly whine. But we don't want to stay there. We don't. That's why I said we just keep moving on, right? Because if you do that, I have a really good friend, my buddy Brent, who lives in I think he's still in Colorado. He's not drinking. He's abstinent, but he's not in recovery, right? He sits himself. I am told by his son that he sits himself in front of the computer, in front of the TV, and he is constantly watching this garbage being spewed across the screen about all the junk that's going on. You fill your head with this stuff, you become what you fill your head with.
Toxic.
Right.
You become toxic.
Yes.
I have a friend, and I'm going to speak to, for those of you who are not of the Christian persuasion, who are not followers of Jesus, please bear with me. Don't tune us out right now, but just bear with me. We all here are people that we call ourselves Christians. We call ourselves followers of Christ. We have turned our will and our lives over to the care of Jesus as we continue in our understanding of him, which is a continuing process in our lives, right, guys?
Correct.
Yeah, we continue to grow. And I want to speak to those of you of that faith that wonder why in the heck, I mean, you're going to meetings, you're going to church, you're doing this stuff, you believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have acknowledged your dilemma, and you still fall into the same behavior. And I'm not talking about once in a while, I'm talking about on a pretty regular basis. And you're at the point where you're throwing yourself under the bus, and this rock you're carrying around, you're just beating yourself up with it. I want to share this letter I wrote to a friend of mine who recently, now I've known this gentleman since he was 16, 17 years of age. And he's been married, several kids, and he gave his life, he turned his will and his life over to the care of Christ. He's been in recovery. He has attended, I say attended because he really hasn't done the work, but he's attended meetings for years and gone to church and that whole thing. And yet he finds himself continually falling back into destructive behaviors. Well, I received a letter from him that was apologizing for not staying in contact, but he wanted to bring me up to date because he was embarrassed. He is now in prison. His earliest release date is 2025, but he could be in there as long as 20 years. He got high. He was playing shack-up honey with some gal. Another guy was also playing shack-up honey with the same gal. He got mad, got high, and he burned the guy's house down.
Was the guy in it?
No, thank God nobody was hurt. When this happens to people that we love and we've tried to help, I mean, it can be very frustrating, right? And so in my brain, I went over, I wrote this letter to him 1,000,000 times, and I tore them all up because until I wrote this one, I really hadn't prayed about it, and I hadn't asked God, what do you want me to say? Because I didn't know what to say. I was going to chew them out. All this stuff. And it just wasn't the love of the Lord. Right? So I prayed about it, and I feel very strongly that God gave me these words, and I want to share this with the listeners because you may be able to identify with this. I know I certainly do. And this speaks to acknowledging our condition. I'll skip the intro on here. This is the second paragraph. I feel prompted to share with you the truth of Scripture that once you have received Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and received his salvation, it cannot be taken out of your life regardless of your behavior. You and I did not earn our salvation through our behavior, and we can't lose it through our behavior. When Jesus said, "It is finished," the price was paid once and for all, and the gift of salvation became a free gift to all who would receive it. But we did not earn it, and we can't lose it. Your position in Christ is secure. Now, there is a huge difference between your position, which is secure, and your condition, which is way out of whack. Brother, our salvation is not in question here, but the condition of our hearts and the purpose for which we have been saved, well, that's kind of messed up due to our choices, due to our sinful nature. The great news is our condition can begin to line back up with our position the more we submit to his purpose in our lives. That purpose is and always has been to be of maximum service to God and the people he puts in our lives, starting with our families, even our broken families. I hope you always remember that the state of your condition is never a prerequisite to your position in God. Our position was completed by the Lord and cannot be undone by man. So, this brings into question, why do we continue to do the things we have always done that destroy our lives? Well, it's a pretty easy question to answer. It's because of sin. This is not at all an excuse, but it is a reason. I can never fix what I would not acknowledge. I listened for years to well-meaning Christians tell me, don't call yourself an addict or an alcoholic. So for years, I argued with the Apostle Paul when he said that he boasted of his weakness. Why in the world would I ever argue with him? Because I did believe the misinterpretation of 2 Corinthians 5:17, which reads, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new." So why did I still struggle with sin if all things had passed away? Because this scripture is in reference to our spiritual position, not our human condition. If we were talking about our human condition, then once we were saved and in Christ, we would never experience sickness again, heartbreak, the need to wear glasses, have to work for a living, etc. In short, sin would never again be part of our lives. But we know that that just isn't true. The Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 10, "But he said to me, this is God saying to Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest on me. That is why, for the sake of Christ, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So the author of the majority of the New Testament says that he boasts of his weakness and that he is made strong. Therefore, I have no problem making the public declaration that I am an alcoholic. I recovered, yes, but an alcoholic just the same. It is my weakness, and I will forever boast of it. For in doing so, I am acknowledging my condition, and therefore I begin to heal, made whole again, and made strong. But I can never forget that though all things are made new in my spiritual self, I will always contend with my flesh until Christ returns. This, of course, is not a license to sin. In fact, if I am truly in Christ, there will be change. New fruit will begin to be produced, and it will become evident to others as well as myself of that change. Now, when I sin, I can't stay in that behavior very long because it goes against the Spirit of God that lives within me. So my question to those who struggle with the same things repeatedly with no apparent change is, have you truly surrendered to Christ? Have you truly acknowledged your condition? Are you truly born from above? It is a question everyone who says they are a follower of Christ must ask themselves, for though we always struggle with the flesh, if we are truly born again, that'll be evidence of it. Our spiritual DNA will change. I don't believe that a person can continue to thumb their nose at God, claim to be a Christian, and still pick and choose what they will obey and what they will not. That is not the walk of a true believer. Do we struggle and fall into disobedience now and then? Of course we do. But there is a huge difference between falling and declaring our right to do whatever we want, regardless of what God instructs us to do. So have we acknowledged our condition? Because without doing so, it'll never get fixed. So that's what I sent to him. And because I know this guy, I know he beats himself up terribly, right? And he struggles. Am I still saved? Yeah. If you truly are, you are. If you've turned your will and your life over to Jesus Christ and you've accepted him as your Lord and Savior, you are. But your condition may still be a mess. And quite frankly, guys, my condition is still a mess. At the foot of the cross, the playing field is level. And I still got a lot of work to do. How about you?
Oh, yeah.
Daily.
Daily. Yeah.
Daily.
Exactly.
Every morning.
I just try to be, I try to keep in the forefront of my brain every day that, I try to help someone else.
Yeah.
Be of service, be of maximum service to my fellows.
Yeah.
Whoever they may be.
And here's the thing.
And not try to steer where that goes. It's like I'm just
not trying to
control
it. Yeah.
To help, and we'll see what happens.
But make no mistake, even though I can admit that I have a medical condition called alcoholism, it doesn't define me. And there's a big difference, because there's a lot of people in the rooms of recovery. They're allowing that to define who they are.
Right.
I am not defined by my character defects. I'm not defined by my illnesses. I'm diabetic. I'm not defined by that. But we run around, right, Dave? We talked about this before. Running around like, we're doomed because we're addicts, or we're doomed because, and so we carry it around like a badge of honor in self-destructive mode.
Yeah, some are negatives. I mean, I look at mine as I embrace my life experience because it's turned me into the person that I am today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right? I can't go back and fix anything. It's right. It's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
But and I've never really have beaten myself up for too long. So I think I've always had that component in my DNA is like, and now I'm after being, getting into recovery and getting recovered, I'm able to look at the whole process from where the earliest memory is until now. And it's like this plan, that my higher power, God, is had for my life. It's just, I've decided to take, some turns along the way and trying to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
Being given bad information along the way until I finally, and now I'm like, okay, I can't go back and fix anything. I can't change anything, but because of what I've been through, it's made me to the person that I am today. And I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
And that's the statement, we don't regret the past or wish to shut the door on it, right?
Right.
Because if we do, how in the heck are we going to share our experience, strength, and hope with somebody who's still suffering?
Yeah, and if you're full of shame all the time, and you can't fully recover, and you can't help anyone else because you're still stuck in your own stuff.
I think becoming comfortable in your own skin is so valuable when you finally get to a stage in your life and you realize who you are, and this is the way I am.
Right.
You can work with that. You know, the regrets go. I mean, I've made bad mistakes, and there's a little piece of me that says I wish I hadn't. But if I hadn't made that mistake, who knows where I would have been? You know, it had steered my path this way.
Yeah.
Not that way.
Right.
We preach a lot of doom and gloom in the 12-step rooms a lot of times, and the deal of it is, the fact is you can recover. I mean, most of the mainstream programs say, admit the fact that we're a fellowship of people who have recovered from this thing. So I can recover the fumble in the game. Am I still in the game? Yeah, but I've recovered the fumble. I hear so often, well, I'm never going to recover. Wow, what a horrible state to live in.
Right. That's that's like living in a negative state.
I know.
For the rest of your life, because and that's why a lot of people will relapse, because like if there's no light at the end of the tunnel,
right,
for me to get to, there's no goal line, and we're talking about picking up a fumble.
Yeah.
If there's no goal in sight, I'm never going to get there. What's the point?
Just get off the tracks then and just live your life in misery in the tunnel.
And unfortunately, a lot of people in the rooms will perpetuate that lie.
So again, you cannot fix what you don't acknowledge. Right. I need to acknowledge the fact that I do recover. If I will do the work, if I will cooperate with my higher power, with my Creator, and do what He instructs, I will experience a state of recovered, and my DNA in my brain will change. Something happens. There's a complete psychic change. Something happens in my heart, something happens in my brain, right? And I change. And you're not tempted first. You have desire first. Desire happens, it gives way to temptation. Temptation gives way to sin. Sin gives way to death. Right? So my desire actually starts to change. And then the things that tempted me, they're not so tempting anymore because my thinking has changed. And it's revolutionary, guys. Some people, it takes different amounts of time than others, right? Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, that kind of thing. Don't give up. Keep pressing in because change does happen. But I can't. I'm not going to fix that if I don't acknowledge the fact that, we just don't acknowledge our malady, but we have to acknowledge our solution too. So my friend who's in prison, he can experience the solution of God's grace, and God can use him in mighty ways in that institution like He hasn't been able to use him in other places, regardless of what got him there.
If he allows himself to.
If he allows himself to do that. Because his position in God, it's set.
Well, I don't know about you, but God uses jail and prison to correct people.
Oh yeah, it's not perfect, but what is?
Right.
Any closing thoughts, my fine friends? Denver?
Not really a lot.
Turn the TV off.
Yeah, turn the TV off.
Turn the TV off.
Yeah, click out CNN.
Go outside, get some sun, play with your dogs, play with your kids.
Plant some flowers.
Oh, I was in the sun way too much yesterday. I don't know.
Pull some weeds.
I'm done for the sun.
I don't know who wrote the song, but I know John Denver made it popular years ago, and I can't remember the name of it. But in the verse was, blow up the TV, throw away the paper, eat a lot of peaches.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember that song either.
That's great. Maybe I'll dig it up.
Okay.
All right. Our closing song this week is by Ben Reel. It's called One of These Days. So if you're one of these people that, well, one of these days I'll acknowledge my malady. One of these days I'll acknowledge the fact that there's a solution. Yeah, but for right now I'm going to sit in my misery. All right, well, that's your choice, I guess. But anyway, kind of a fun song. Ben Real, benreal.com. One of these days.
I've been thinking about a change of scenery. I've been looking for a different point of view. I've been struggling with the big picture. It's in my head that I used to know for sure. Whoa, these days, well, I've been thinking about it these days. Gotta do something about it these days. One of these days, I'm searching for a new direction. Pull back the blinds, let the sun that shine true. Don't like the look of my own reflection. Woke up this morning in the mood for something new. Whoa, these days, well, I've been thinking about it these days. Gotta do something about it these days. One of these days, one of these days. Oh, I'm gonna break the mold. One of these days, I'm gonna find my own way back home. All right, come on. I can't drink as much as I used to. I can't keep up trying to run around after you. The world is changing, gotta do what you gotta do. No black or white, just a different kind of blue. Whoa, these days, well, I've been thinking about it these days. Gotta do something about it these days. One of these days. Oh, these days. Well, I've been thinking about it these days. Gotta do something about it these days. One of these days. One of these. 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 One of these
Mr. Ben Real. To visit his website and get some more of his great music, visit him at benreal, REEL.com. Listen, if you'd like to download or listen to about 3.5 hours worth of the best in recovery music by some of the most phenomenal recovery recording artists on the planet, visit us at take12radio.com. Scroll down to the recovery music banner, click on that, and there you'll see two productions that we put together a couple years ago that have become so popular we decided to keep them up. I know you'll enjoy it, and it will be an encouragement for you. Listen, if you'd like to make a donation at this time, we would appreciate it. We are up against the wall as far as paying our bills to keep us on the air. It's all volunteer here, so we are, we're asking for your help. Simply visit us at take12radio.com. Scroll down to the bottom left of the page, and there's a donate button there. If you click on that, it'll show you how you can contribute if you wish to do so. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
'Cause she's a super cat, she's super kitty, meow.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Meow.